highlights of the grueling Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa Rally. Toyota, Sani Industries, SVM, V Motors, Rapsa, Protea Playing Card, AGA Panasonic and Johannesburg Yamaha. The Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa Rally is the toughest event of its kind in the world and always provides a fitting finale to the South African Off-Road Championship. With a number of titles still up for grabs after a long and hard season, this year's three-day fight against Lesotho's tough mountain terrain took on added significance for a number of competitors. On the motorcycle front, consistent performances throughout the season took Riaan van Niekerk into the final race of the season with a 20-point lead over Kevin Fisher in the 500 class. With multiple champion Alfie Cox campaigning overseas this season, Bloemfontein-based Graham McLaughlin had a comfortable lead over Daryl Curtis in the 250 category. The big battle was in the 200 class, where only 3 points separated championship leader Alex Vowles and Henny Human.
I've been away for 8.5 months, and everybody says that when I get back there's so many guys going fast, but now I've been in Europe and I've gained so much experience there, and I'm hoping it's going to help me a little bit more here when I come back. And I like the roof, and I've always done well here, and that's why I've come home for the Roof of Africa.
On four wheels, the special vehicle class was going all the way to the wire, with just 7 points separating the Chepek father and son combination and the Eastern Cape crew of Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton.
It's going to be a lot of pressure on this particular race. It's the end of the season, it's the last race. It's for double points. We've got a 7-point lead at the moment, but on double points it doesn't mean much. Double points is 90 points. So we've got to decide what to do, whether to go for a win, which would be very nice. Very competitive, a lot of good cars here, or otherwise just finish and try and win the championship, which was the other alternative.
Wikus van Deventer has dominated the quad racer category throughout the season. The little man from the Northwest Province has proved to be in a class of his own this year. In the production vehicle category, Ralph and Ray Henderson had an outside chance of slipping through the back door to catch R.P. Reiniger and navigator Robin Houghton. Out of the championship race, last year's winners Cliff Barker and Mike Redden were looking at making it a double.
Well, I think first of all, your car's got to be good, and then secondly, you've got to have some kind of race plan. Your plan must be obviously to last for 3 days. Last year we kept a slow pace for the first day, speeded up a bit more, and then the last day we raced. I think that seems to be the way to go.
The traditional Alliance Round the Houses race always gets the Roof of Africa off to a cracking start. For many Maseru residents, the Round the Houses events provide for the outing of the year, and for the competitors there's an early adrenaline rush. Of course, where some crews are concerned, they still have to get rid of a few cobwebs, and some run into early problems with the route schedule. The course for the Alliance Round the Houses combines tar sections through Maseru with the sort of conditions more readily associated with off-road racing. Robbie Walk and Greg Wiebel in the Super Pave Raceco jumped into the early lead, with Harry Roscoe in the Protea Playing Card single-seater right behind the pair. The impressive Motortech Raceco former roof winners Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne was next up, with the front runners setting a terrific pace. Lars Buerta always said the Rugby Currie Cup was never won in May, and the roof is never won on the first day. With 3 tough days ahead, a number of crews were content to tackle the Round the Houses section at a far more sedate pace. Where others are concerned, the racing instinct bubbles to the surface, and it's time to have a little early fun. Harry Roscoe has won more Round the Houses trophies than any other driver and was enjoying himself hugely. The Motortech Raceco was surprisingly nimble on the tight tar sections, with Nardis Alberts and Peter Mattia also going well. Linton Draper is always spectacular in the big Raceco Chevy, and the crowds that throng the Maseru city centre love every moment of it. At the front of the field, Robbie Walk and Greg Wiebel were gradually being caught by Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in the awesome Motortech Raceco. The Raceco resembling a moon buggy brushing aside obstacles, the pair had moved ahead of Harry Roscoe in the single-seater car. Schilling and Thorne, the only Lesotho resident ever to have won the car section of the roof, were on a charge with the locals cheering on their favourites. The Round the Houses pipe opener is combined on the opening day of the roof with a time trial that takes competitors out of Maseru for a short preview of what is to come over the next 2 days. Accumulated times for the Round the Houses section and the time trial are used to determine start positions for the second day of racing. Once out of the confines of Maseru, the Schilling-Thorn combination let the Motortech race go off the leash and set off in hot pursuit of the Super Pave car in the hands of Robbie Walk and Greg Wiebel. On fast and open sections like this, with the specially designed suspension making light work of the road surface, the twin and single-seater raceco's hit speeds in excess of 200 kilometers an hour. Behind the Motortech and Super Pave cars, Harry Roscoe was going well in the first of the single-seaters. Both Walk and Roscoe had huge accidents on the roof a couple of seasons ago, but have lost none of their zest for racing. Still without a win this season were 1994 Special Vehicle champions Herman and Karl-Heinz Sulwald in another raceco. Although it hadn't been a happy season for the pair in terms of results, the Sulwalds were hoping to end on a high note. Not far behind the brothers from Secunda, the Shell raceco, driven by Stan Illman and Franz Stangl, was going along steadily. The pair raised a few eyebrows when they arrived at the roof a couple of seasons ago in a Porsche Carrera. They promptly went out and won their class, and earlier this year competed in the London to Mexico rally in the same car. The Roof of Africa each year disrupts for a day or two the tranquility of rural life in Lesotho. There is nothing tranquil in the cockpit of a race car competing on the roof, with the Nissan Sani of Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak setting the pace in the production vehicle category. Woolridge is a former winner of the motorcycle category on the roof and was looking to join Kelly Shorthammer and Malcolm Smith as the only men to have won the roof on both 2 and 4 wheels. Chasing after the Sani were 1993 winners Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leake in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. The Springbok pair went into the roof with a good season behind them. The pair tasted victory in both this year's Off-Road Championship and in the Video Sport Challenge categories on both the Castrol and Toyota International rallies. A terrific rivalry has developed in the production vehicle category this season. Toyota, Nissan and Land Rover were all represented in this year's championship with top-notch driver-navigator combinations in action. Both Kutsia and Leake won South African colours in rallying before concentrating on off-road racing and are among the most widely experienced competitors in the country. The Video Sport SVM Range Rover in the hands of Arthur Abram and Stratford Voigt was holding down a position in the top 5. Running in the same stable along with the Video Sport SVM Land Rover driven by Cliff Barker and Mike Redden, the Range Rover has been competitive all season with some encouraging performances from Abraham and Voigt. Despite technological advances where suspension, wheel and tyres are concerned, off-road racing vehicles are not the most comfortable vehicles. Apart from the vehicles, driver and navigator also take a hammering. After a quiet start to the Round the Houses in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser, Production Vehicle Championship leaders Arpi Reneke and Robin Houghton were into their stride in the time trial. The pair rapidly made up time, but with the championship in their grasp, were not taking any risks. At the end of the first day, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne led the special vehicle category ahead of Robbie Walk and Greg Wiebel. Nardis Alberts and Peter Mathieu were third, with the first 10 crews all in racecos. In the production vehicle category, the first skirmishes were won by Nissan Sani pair Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak, with Toyota crews second and third ahead of the Abram Voigt Range Rover. Missing from the top 10 were last year's winners Cliff Barker and Mike Redden. A mud puddle on the Round the Houses route provided for a little early fun for the quad racers, who, predictably enough, were being led by Vickers van Deventer on the Pro Group Security Yamaha Banshee. The tape marking the route was an early casualty, with most riders deciding that skirting the fringes of the mud puddle was the best option. It was only a matter of time before someone decided to tackle the mud puddle head-on. The result of this approach was also predictable. While backmarkers prudently followed the example of the leaders and decided discretion was the better part of valor, Adrian Herschel on the Johannesburg Yamaha machine found himself bogged down and losing valuable time. Whatever the state of play, the off-road motorcycle brigade tend to approach the job at hand as though there were no tomorrow. With dust always a problem for the cars and buckies, there's a definite advantage in being at the front of the field at the start of each day. Apart from a psychological advantage, starting at the front of the field is not a critical factor where the bikers are concerned, but their approach is often to go as fast as possible for as long as possible. There was never any doubt that the likes of six-time winner Alfie Cox and Free Stater Graham McLaughlin would set the pace, but there were to be one or two surprises in the top 10 at the end of the day. With 6 victories under his belt, Cox was going for a hat-trick of wins on the roof. An Italian has twice previously been on the brink of a hat-trick of wins, only to be thwarted first by Jeremy Davies and then by the late Patrick Andrews, who became the first Lesotho rider to win the event. Free Stater Graham McLaughlin looked to be a man on a mission on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda. Although still without an overall win going into the roof, McLaughlin has performed consistently in his first full season in the 250 class. McLaughlin was setting a cracking pace, but most people had their eyes on Alfie Cox, who this time around was mounted on a Pro Action Castrol KTM running in the 500 class. With the route for the time trial flat and very quick for the most part, a couple of riders got caught out with overshoots with some expressive language when it happened. There were no such problems for another of the fancied riders, Errol Dalton, on bike 545, the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda, who by his standards was going along very sedately. Kevin Fisher's approach on the Pro Honda 250 was a little more spectacular than Dalton up ahead of him, and he was one of the riders who lost a few seconds with a slight deviation from the route. Andy Norris-Jones on the Jeffers Racing Kawasaki looked to be in good form and was setting the pace in the 200 class. Although virtually out of the running in the overall stakes because of lack of power, competition in the smallest capacity category in off-road racing is fierce. Chasing after Norris on the Antilex Dairy Kawasaki was 200 class championship leader Alex Vowles, who went into the roof with a slender 3-point lead over Henny Human in the 200 category. As is so often the case, the 200 class runners were closely bunched, and not far behind Norris-Jones and Vowles was Clayton Enslin on the PD Motorcycles Kawasaki. Behind Enslin, a good scrap had developed between Henny Human on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda and Dino Paoloni on a Kawasaki, who were being egged on by enthusiastic local children. When the dust had settled, Vickers van Deventer was just over a minute ahead of Team Yamaha's Derek Johnson in the quad racer category. The pair led Yuri Duplessis, Paul Martin and Rod McPherson with all the top 10 Yamaha mounted. Alfie Cox on the KTM led the motorcycle brigade by nearly 2 minutes. He was followed by Graham McLaughlin on the first of the 250s and Gray Dick. Andy Norris-Jones and Alex Vowles completed the top 10 and led the 200 class. It is inevitable that on the Roof of Africa Rally there are first day casualties. Among them this year were Special Vehicle Championship leaders Franz Czepik Sr. and Jr. in the V-Motors Raceco. It was a major blow for two-time winner Franz Czepik Sr.
We had a cam follower go on the time trial, and the cam follower, we rode on with it. We had to finish the time trial, and we bugged up the camshaft. So we were going to throw in the towel, but we've actually decided we're going to try and replace the camshaft. That means splitting the whole engine in half. It must be about 10 hours labour, but we must get a half an hour penalty tomorrow morning. But if we can get it going, we're going to give it a bash.
For three-time winner Richard Schilling's success in the roof last came in 1992. Being back at the front of the field was an enormous boost for Schilling and navigator Ashley Thorne.
Yeah, no, it's taken a long time to be starting on the front again, but Ashley and myself are delighted that at last we've had a chance to show what the car can do and the team can do. Nice position to start the roof in on the second day.
On the right, Paddy Driver, a South African motorsport legend who won motorcycle and saloon car track races and off-road events over 4 decades. Reduced nowadays to the role of enthusiastic spectator, Driver was on hand to see Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne lead the field away in the Motortech Raceco with its V8 power and semi-automatic gearbox. Next away were Rob Walk and former driver Greg Wiebel in a far more conventional Raceco. The off-road fraternity just love their early morning starts, and even in November there's a nip in the air in Lesotho. The good news, as far as competitors were concerned, was that Lesotho's notoriously fickle weather looked like staying clear. The Roof of Africa in the wet is sheer torture, and everyone was praying for dry conditions. The Nissan Sani of Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak was the first of the production vehicles off the line. The Nissan was ahead of a pensive-looking RB Reinecker and Robin Houghton in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser. Up at the front of the field, there was a rapid change in race order, with Rob Walk and Greg Wiebel quickly moving ahead of the Schilling-Thorn combination in the Motortech Raceco. The quick change at the front of the field with Walk and Wiebel going into the lead was something of a surprise, but set up the prospect of a good battle between the Superpave car and the Motortech entry. Behind them, Nardis Alberts and Peter Mattia in the Toyota-powered Rapso Raceco had started off on a promising note. The pair were going well and their prospects looked bright. Alberts and Mattia ran into good form late in the season and were looking for another strong performance. Running fourth on the road was the Shell Raceco of Stanley Illman and Frans Stangl. The approach Illman and Stangl take to their off-road racing is to settle into a rhythm and gradually wear down the opposition. It paid off with a win in the first event of the season, with their championship challenge disrupted slightly by their London to Mexico adventure. There was also a promising start for Craig Draper, who was partnered in the Castrol Racing Raceco by Mike Pretorius, who at one stage navigated for Draper's father Linton. Toyota Desert Race winner Richard Carolyn was the first of the single-seaters in the Lubrication Equipment Raceco, with brother Bix again down on the entry list as co-driver of the car. Affectionately known as Obut, elder brother Richard is steadiness personified and dovetails well with his more aggressive brother. There had also been an early change at the front of the production vehicle category. The Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser of RB Reinecker and Robin Houghton had moved ahead of the Nissan Sani, with the Toyota's motors sounding as crisp as ever. It was turning into a good day for Toyota, with the Castrol Hilux in the hands of Springboks, Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek. Second on the road in the production vehicle category behind the Land Cruiser, the experienced Leek and Coetzee, winners of the Roof in 1993, had also moved ahead of the Woolridge Vermaak Nissan Sani, which appeared to have run into problems. The Natal crew of Derek Pinoy and Hilton Laurie were going along steadily in an aging Raceco. Pinoy is highly experienced and a previous winner in national off-road racing, who knows just what the Roof of Africa is all about. While some crews were content to try and preserve machinery for the final day, the Sulwald brothers, Herman and Karl Heinz, were on a charge in the Sulwald Transport Raceco. It had been an unhappy season for the 1994 Special Vehicle Champions, and they were determined to make up for it on the roof. At the front of the Class B field, Herbie Smith was having another good outing in the superbly turned out Mighty Mag. Looking like a miniature version of the bigger and more powerful Racecos, the Mighty Mag and Smith have turned in some impressive performances this season. Behind Smith, the Nissan Sani, driven by Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak, was rapidly losing time to the two Toyota teams, running 1 and 2 on the road in the production vehicle category. One of the beauties of the Roof of Africa, or you could call it a pitfall depending on your point of view, is the deceptive nature of the terrain. A road or track which at first glance looks to be straightforward enough is often loaded with hidden dangers. Race cam footage from the Nissan Sani provided for a perfect example of what the roof is all about. With the Chepek father and son combination out of the running, all Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton had to do to make sure of the Special Vehicle Championship was to get the Queen Motorspares Raceco to the finish. Like Stan Illman and Frans Stangl, the Eastern Cape crew are not given to taking extravagant chances and were quite content to let the opposition make the mistakes. Class B frontrunners Wade Perrins and Derek Frankenberg in the normally reliable Sandmaster had fallen behind class leader Herbie Smith, but at this stage of the race must have been satisfied with their progress. Class E quickly developed into a battle of the families, with Andrew and Chris Birkin up against the consistent husband and wife pairing of Niels and Albie Lemmer. Just to make it a little more interesting, with the Birkins nosing ahead in the early stages, both crews were in Toyota Hiluxes. Up against the big guns with factory backing in Class D, the aging Nissan Safari of Mafeking pair Paul Jonker and Michael Allen never had a realistic chance of class honours. But there was a spirited performance from the pair in the early stages of Racing Section 2. At the front of the quad racer field, Wikus van Deventer and Derek Johnson were racing together. Since the quad racers were granted national championship status a season ago, van Deventer has been the dominant force in the championship, and it was a stout effort on Johnson's part to stick closely to the Barbaspan-based rider. There were no prizes for guessing who had taken an early grip on the motorcycle section of the 1995 Roof of Africa Rally. Mounted on the Pro Action Castrol KTM, the diminutive Alfie Cox had simply picked up where he left off nearly 9 months previously when he went to campaign in Europe. In search of his 7th roof victory, Cox had already passed the Videosport SVM Range Rover of Arthur Abram and Stratford Voigt, which was not sounding all that healthy. Within moments of Cox steaming past the Range Rover, Abraham and Voigt decided that it was time for some running repairs, with the event suddenly starting to bare its teeth. Graham McLaughlin was having to push hard on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda to keep tabs on Cox, and when he went past the Videosport SVM entry, navigator come engineer Stratford Voigt was delving deep into the Range Rover's innards. Lesotho entry Fofolo Shai and Moratoli Ramasika in a Toyota Hilux were running third in Class E among the production vehicle entries. Behind them, two-wheeler Grey Dick was having a good run on the Schimmels Yamaha in the 500 class. Dick was running third on the road to Alfie Cox and Graham McLaughlin, but behind him, Errol Dalton on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda and Daryl Curtis on the Pro Action AGA Panasonic KTM were closing in for the kill. Dalton and Curtis even had time to exchange a few pleasantries as they blasted through the Lesotho countryside. As a general rule, the motorcycle brigade start an hour after the cars and buckies on off-road events. It does not take the quicker bikers long to catch up with the car backmarkers, and there are times when overtaking can be a bit of a problem. For the most part, the bikers are an inventive lot, and with the more maneuverable machines, sooner or later find a way around the cars. Over the years, the Roof has drawn a string of top-notch overseas competitors. The event has 5 times been won by riders from overseas, with German Dirk von Zitzewitz on a KTM lurking on the fringes of the top 5 early on in this year's race. Kevin Fisher on the Pro Honda machine was having a good run, and at this stage there was no one among the front runners who you did not expect to be there. Championship leader Alex Vowles on the Antilex Dairy Kawasaki was running at the front of the 200 category, with Rod McPherson third on the road among the quad racers, but a long way adrift of Wikus van Deventer and Derek Johnson. River crossings like this one were meat and drink to the bikers, but elicited a far more cautious approach from the car and bucky brigade. With an outside chance of winning the production vehicle championship, Class F frontrunners Ralph Henderson and nephew Ray in the roller-bearing Printer Services Ford were not taking any chances. The Hendersons were being overtaken by biker after biker, but were in firm control of Class F. Behind them, Arthur Abram and Stratford Voigt were mobile again in the Videosport SVM Range Rover, but had lost plenty of time. There was always plenty of activity at service and refuel points, and a nice touch with the sidelined Franz Czepik Sr. and Jr. helping to service for championship rivals Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton. The Eastern Cape pair were still running strongly, but for others, problems were a little more serious. At the front of the field, there had been some dramatic changes. Richard Chilling and Ashley Thorne in the Motortech Raceco were firmly in control, with early leaders Robbie Walk and Greg Wiebel and a string of crews running into a variety of problems. Chilling and Thorne were now being chased by Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leek, who were second on the road in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. There had also been a dramatic change of terrain for the four-wheel runners. They had moved from flat and open sections into tight mountain passes, which were a handful for big vehicles like the Bangford Toyota Land Cruiser of R.P. Reneker and Robin Houghton, which had now slotted into third place behind the Schilling Thorn and Kutsia Leak combinations. Fourth on the road were Stanley Illman and Franz Stangl in the Shell Raceco, who were maintaining the steady pace that has become a trademark for the pair. At the front of the motorcycle field, the inimitable Alfie Cox was all on his own and going like the clappers on the Pro Action Castrol KTM. After missing most of the South African season through campaigning overseas, it was like old times for the Italian, who was once again clamping a vice-like grip on the roof of Africa. There was also a change of scenery for the bikers. They were now also into the mountains with Errol Dalton on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda and Daryl Curtis on the Pro Action AJ Panasonic KTM still riding together. While Cox was overseas, Dalton and Curtis did most of the winning in this year's championship. Behind them, Jason Moriarty sharing riding duties with Alan Julien on the Pro Honda and Gray Dick on the Schimwells Yamaha were finding it tough going and had been caught by German rider Dirk von Zitzewitz on the KTM Deutschland entry. Early frontrunner Graham McLaughlin on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda had dropped back slightly and was now 7th on the road. The Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa always comes up with a few surprises, and carving their way through the field were Natal crew Mark Laurie and Warren Morton in a Raceco. Right behind the pair were Laurie's brother Hilton, who was navigating for Derek Pinoy in yet another Raceco. Both the Natal entries were running strongly with no hint of a problem. Behind the two Natal crews, there was also no hint of a problem for Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton in the Queen Motorspares car, who were soldiering steadily onwards. The Eastern Cape pair now had a firm grip on this year's Special Vehicle Championship. Alex Vowles also had a firm grip on the 200 class championship on the Antilex Dairy Kawasaki, but was coming under pressure from Clayton Enslin on the PD Motorcycles Kawasaki. Enslin was right on the tail of Gray Dick on the Schimwells Yamaha, with Graham McLaughlin dropping another couple of places on the Lesotho Office Equipment Honda. Not that McLaughlin looked too unhappy about the situation. There were also no prizes for guessing who was at the front of the quad racer brigade. Vickers van Deventer on the Pro Group Security Yamaha Banshee had shaken off the attentions of Derek Johnson, who had run into problems. Van Deventer had also moved ahead of the Nissan Sani of Neil Woolridge and Paul Vermaak. The Sani had lost a great deal of time to production vehicle frontrunners Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leak in the Castrol Toyota Hilux and R.P. Reneker and Robin Houghton in the Bangford Toyota Land Cruiser. Not far behind Woolridge and Vermaak was Rod McPherson on the Team Johannesburg Yamaha, who had made up a great deal of ground and was running second to Van Deventer in the quad category. While McPherson was eating a little dust from the Nissan Sani, there was a more comfortable ride home for someone who had failed to see out the distance. There were no such luxuries, though, for Derek Johnson, who was pushing hard to make up for lost time on the Team Yamaha Banshee. First across the line at the finish at the end of day 2 of the roof were Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne in the Motortech Raceco. They'd opened up a gap of around 25 minutes over Stan Illman and Franz Stangl in the special vehicle category. Derek Pinoy and Hilton Laurie, Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton and Richard Carolyn completed the top 5. First home in the production vehicle category were 1993 winners Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leak in the Castrol Toyota Hilux. They were around 14 minutes ahead of R.P. Reneker and Robin Houghton, with the Nissan Sani almost an hour behind in third place. At the end of day 2, overall motorcycle category leader Alfie Cox on the Pro Action Castrol KTM had stretched his lead over Daryl Curtis to a whopping 28 minutes. Curtis had broken away from Errol Dalton, with Dirk van Zitzewitz and Alex Vowles completing the top 5.
It's getting rougher each year, and the very long day today, you know, physically, because of the jarring in the arms, because the washaways and the rain has done a lot of damage in the mountains. But it was a good ride, and marking was good. I'm very happy.
As expected, Wikus van Deventer led home the quad races, but he was less than 2 minutes in front. Behind van Deventer, a good battle was developing for second place. Derek Johnson had again moved ahead of Rod McPherson in a battle that was seesawing. Good ride saw Kevin Pereira and Evan Hutchinson into 4th and 5th. With a comfortable lead, Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne looked to be good bets to wrap up a second Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa victory. Schilling was looking for his 4th win, having previously won the event with Fred Levesque and Rob Walk, but most of the pressure was on Harvey and Acton, who were within sight of winning the 95 Special Vehicle Championship.
We're going to take it very easy today, and we're going to ride virtually to finish, because that's all we need. As long as we finish, I think in the first 10, it's all right. So we're going to conserve the car and try and get the finish line. That's what we plan to do today.
Production vehicle leaders Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek were also looking for a second Roof of Africa win. A terrific day 2 run saw the pair up into the second overall position, and they must have fancied their chances. Since it was first run way back in 1967, the Roof has earned its reputation as the toughest event of its kind in the world, but it also takes competitors through some breathtaking scenery. The Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa Rally has always been a case of survival of the fittest. Day 2 took a heavy toll, with fancied runners like Bob Walk and Greg Wiebel and the Sulwald brothers falling by the wayside. Those who never made it past day 1 included last year's winners Cliff Barker and Mike Redden, and Franz Chepik Sr. and Jr., who went into the Roof leading the Special Vehicle Championship. The Roof's reputation for providing a sting in the tail must have been uppermost in the minds of Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne, who were faced with 1 or 2 other problems. With a powerful wind blowing up in the mountains, there were also uncomfortable moments for the marshals. Day 2 also provided a fine performance from Derek Pinoy and Hilton Laurie, who were still running strongly early on in the final leg. The Natal crew had yet to run into major problems, but were under a little pressure from Stan Ilman and Frans Stangl in the Shell Raceco. Sections of the route were very rough, forcing crews to use a great deal of discretion. It is all too easy to push too hard at the wrong time and damage the vehicle. Behind Stan Ilman and Frans Stangl, there was something of a traffic jam. Neil Woolrich and Paul Vermaak in the Nissan Sani were being closely followed by the Carolyn Lubrication Equipment Raceco and Herbie Smith, who was still going great guns in the Mighty Mag. With deep ruts and dongers often lining the side of the track, attempts at overtaking could turn into a risky business, and everyone was displaying a fair amount of caution. RP Reinicker and Robin Houghton in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser were also being forced into taking a cautious approach, with Ralph and Ray Henderson still in with a mathematical chance of sneaking the Production Vehicle Championship. It was not time for Reinicker and Houghton to start taking unnecessary chances. Just up the road, the vagaries of the Roof were amply illustrated by the sight of the Castrol Toyota Hilux of Cassie Coetzee and Richard Leek stranded on the edge of a river crossing.
We came into this river crossing, and the sand was very thick. We took what we thought was the best line through it, and unfortunately just couldn't get over the bank, just a little bit higher up on the left, and the clutch wouldn't take it. We rolled back, stuck in the sand, dug out, rolled up again, and we couldn't get over the brim. And subsequently the other crews found a way around us, a little shortcut up the bank on your right, and they've got through. But it's done some damage to our clutch and no more drive. So that's the end of our event, unfortunately.
It was cruel luck on Coetzee and Leek, but a development that put RP Reinicker and Robin Houghton into the lead in the Toyota Land Cruiser. Toyota were well in control in Class E as well, where the Hilux of Andrew and Chris Birkin still led the similar vehicle crewed by the husband and wife team of Niels and Elvie Lemmer. Production Vehicle Championship contenders Ralph Henderson and his nephew Ray were the only survivors in Class F. They were a long way behind Reiniger Houghton and the two Toyotas leading Class E, but the Printer Roller Services Ford had not missed a beat. The only problem looming for the Hendersons was the Nissan Safari of Paul Yonker and Michael Adams, which was right on the Ford's tail. In the quad racer category, Vickers van Dievoet had finally taken full control of proceedings on the Pro Group Security Yamaha Banshee. He was starting to pull away from Derek Johnson at a rapid rate of knots, with Johnson starting to edge away from Rod McPherson in third place. After a terrific performance over the first 2 days, Lesotho crew Fofolo Shai and Moratoli Ramusika were starting to slip down the field. The pair had lost their windscreen, and despite words of encouragement from navigator turned spectator Richard Leake, the pair were headed for retirement. Leake and Kutsia were having a good time egging on crews still in the event, with a trio of quad racers also providing for plenty of entertainment for a sizable crowd of locals who had turned up at the riverbed to watch the fun. On the motorcycle front, there was no holding Alfie Cox. The Italian had a vice-like grip on his 7th Roof of Africa and, barring an accident or mechanical problem, was a dead certainty to pick up his 3rd win in a row. Sections of the motorcycle route were murderous. It was a case of rocks, rocks and more rocks as riders battled their way up steep mountain tracks. It was tough going on riders and bikes, with German Dirk von Zitzewitz taking awful strain. The German had fought his way into 3rd place on the faster sections of the route, but on the steep and rocky uphill tracks was being rapidly hauled in by Errol Dalton and Grey Dick, who was having a tremendous roof. Even roof veterans like Errol Dalton were having a tough time of it on the steep mountain tracks. If ever there was proof that this is one of the toughest races in the world, this was it. Up at the service and refuel point, there was more drama. Word came filtering through that race leaders Richard Schilling and Ashley Thorne had joined Cassie Kutsia and Richard Leake in the spectator stakes. The Motortech race car had run into a terminal mechanical problem, and the unpredictability of the Roof of Africa had surfaced once again. With the Schilling, Thorne and Kutsia Leake crews sidelined, it was the Shell race car of Stan Illman and Franz Stangl which was first to arrive at the service centre. While Illman and Stangl stretched their legs, the camaraderie of off-road racing again surfaced. Among those who helped service the Shell race car were Bucks Carolyn and Greg Wiebel.
Waiting for you. We thought you were going to run out of petrol on that stretch, man.
It did not take long to get Illman and Stangl back on the road again, with the next to arrive the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser driven by R.P. Reiniger and Robin Houghton. As always, Reiniger's wife Thelma was on hand to supervise matters in the Bankfin camp.
Right, jy sou voor, Ilman is omtrent 5 minute voor jou, vat so in druk. Ek gaan jou ruit skoon maak en jy vashou.
Check your wheel nuts.
With the Shell race car now in the overall lead and the target for Reiniger and Houghton, tension was starting to rise as the roof moved into its closing stages. While the Bankfin Toyota got underway again, there were awkward moments also for quad category leader Vickers van Dievoet, with the Yamaha Banshee needing some running repairs at the service centre. There is always a surprise package in a race like the Roof, and this year it was provided by the Natal crew of Mark Laurie and Warren Morton. The pair quietly and unobtrusively soldiered on over the 3 days, and on the run into the finish had moved up into 3rd place, running 4th on the road and on their way to clinching the 95 Special Vehicle Championship with the Eastern Cape crew of Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton in the Queen Motorspares race car. A steady run saw Andrew and Chris Birkin firmly in control of the Class E in the Toyota Hilux. The Birkins gradually built up a lead of almost an hour on the husband and wife team of Nielsen Albie Lemmer. Once again, the Lemmers, who had a tremendous year, were the epitome of consistency. The pair won the Class D championship for Toyota and also performed heroically in the Video Sport Off-Road Challenge, which formed part of the Total and Castrol International rallies this season. The season also ended on a high note for Ralph Henderson and nephew Ray in the Printer Roller Services Ford. They dominated Class F throughout the roof, but the strong showing by Api Reneke and Robin Houghton denied them the opportunity of possibly slipping through the back door to win the Production Vehicle Championship. At the front of the field, Stan Illman and Franz Stangl in the Shell Raceco were moving closer and closer to overall victory and top honours in the special vehicle category. They were being chased all the way by Api Reneke and Robin Houghton in the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser, with Mark Laurie and Warren Morton safely ensconced in third place. The gap between second and third was a whopping 2 hours, with only minutes between Illman, Stangl and Reneke Houghton. There was a clear road to the finish for Alfie Cox, who, as he has done so often in the past, totally dominated the motorcycle section. Win number 7 was now a mere formality. A win for Vickers van Deventer in the quad racer category was also a formality, with the Yamaha Banshee rider now 2 hours clear of Derek Johnson in second place. The Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa Sting in the Tail cropped up again, with high drama almost in sight of the finish line. After being overtaken by Api Reneke and Robin Houghton about 100 kilometers from the finish, Stan Illman and Franz Stangl found themselves back in the overall lead when the Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser picked up a puncture 20 kilometers from home. There was little hope of the Toyota making up the leeway over the run into the flag, and it was cruel luck on the veteran Reneke and his young navigator. First across the line at the finish on the outskirts of Maseru was Alfie Cox on the Pro Action Castrol KTM, with his wife there to welcome him home. It was roof win number 7 for Cox, who has made the event his own in recent years, with Daryl Curtis second and Errol Dalton third. Cox took the 500 class, Curtis the 250 category, and Clayton Ensland the 200 class.
For me, it's been a very good race. I've gone out there, I've gone as hard as I can, and end of the day it's paid off. I got a good lead from the day before, and today I just had to keep everything together, the bike, make sure I don't break anything, don't crash, and bring the whole lot home in one piece.
Overall honours and victory in the special vehicle category went to Stan Illman and Franz Stangl in the Shell Raceco. A tough roof took its toll, and there were only 5 finishes in the special vehicle category, with third place overall enough to give Greg Harvey and Lionel Acton the 1995 Special Vehicle Championship.
It was very hard today, quite rough. We had one puncher, otherwise the car ran well. We passed RP passed us about 100 k's back, and when he broke down, we had a puncher as well, and then we passed him in the last 20 kilometers and kept it in front.
The Bankfin Toyota Land Cruiser of Api Reneke and Robin Houghton came charging home to take second overall and victory in the production vehicle category. The result clinched the championship for Reneke and Houghton, and once again there was a high attrition rate with only 4 classified finishers. Behind the winners, the roll of honour was made up entirely of family combinations.
Ons het kampioenskap gewen, dis nou die derde keer wat ons Suid-Afrikaans kampioenskap wen, en ons is bly daaroor, en dit's lekker om so 'n hoë noot af te sluit.
The season ended on a high note for Vickers van Deventer with a comfortable win on the Pro Group Security Yamaha Banshee in the quad racer class. Van Deventer finished 2 hours ahead of Derek Johnson, who fought a good battle throughout with Rod McPherson. Fourth went to Kevin Pereira, with the Breckel brothers completing the finishes.
Ek het 3 jaar probeer vir die roof, ek kon hom nooit eers klaarmaak, die jaar uit te kom. Ek is baie trots.
Highlights of the grueling Lesotho Sun Roof of Africa Rally were proudly brought to you by Toyota, Sani Industries, SVM, V Motors, Rapsa, Protea Playing Card, AGA Panasonic and Johannesburg Yamaha.